our key speaker today is Tim Butler, our solutions architect at Gimmal. Now, before we get started, I have just a couple of housekeeping items to go through. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit them on the Q&A section on your screen, and we're going to answer as many as we have time for at the end of the presentation. There will be at least one poll question pop up, so please keep an eye out for that. All answers will be anonymous. And as always, if you have any technical difficulties, please let us know so we can assist you. Now, to kick things off, I have just one slide here to tell you a little bit about Gimmal and how we can help you take control of your information with our suite of solutions. Founded in 2002, Gimmal is a records, information management, and governance software company that helps you balance the value your information provides with the risk it also presents. Whether you're trying to discover information in unstructured data sources, migrate from legacy systems, or comply with policies across multiple repositories, Gimmal can help you achieve your information governance goals. We have a client success team and a global network of partners that deliver solutions in conjunction with key partners like Microsoft and SAP. Gimmal's family of software products work together to let you create an efficient digital workplace. Our comprehensive solutions include electronic and physical records management, content governance for SharePoint, document management for SAP solutions, file analysis, and migration. But without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand the floor back to Tim so he can get started with today's presentation.
All right. Thank you, Shana. I appreciate that. And guys, again, apologies there. Computers and technology are wonderful until they're not. So let's move it forward here, guys. On the following slide, what we're looking at is sort of the overall agenda of what we'll be discussing here today. As you can see, entitled Ensuring Compliance. Now, hopefully you recognize that we're going to focus squarely on compliance surrounding physical records management throughout the course of our demo today. And we're really going to break that into three little topics or sections here. Number one, guys, understand the landscape and the challenges it presents. This is true of every endeavor you undertake, right? Whether it's managing physical records or really anything else in life that happens to come before you. It's important to know the battles you will face, the battles you'll have to fight. Secondly, once you're understanding the landscape, the challenges, the pressures that you will face, we're going to spend some time in really sort of the meat and potatoes, if you will, of this presentation today of understanding, okay, once I've got an idea what those are, how do I meet those? What specific things can I look for or do to prepare myself to meet those challenges? And then, guys, I think it goes without saying, always, and again, in any endeavor in life, make sure you seek help, but not just any help, the right kind of help. Guys, I thought to myself, how do I take some of these abstract concepts and make them a little bit more concrete? So a very quick story I'd like to share with you. Earlier, last summer, in fact, after just, as it was for everybody, just a rough beginning to 2020 there in March or so as COVID kicked in, my wife and I wanted to take a vacation. We had planned on going to Alaska. I went to the Alaska website and it said, don't come, basically. Or if you come, self-quarantine for 2 weeks. I said, okay, we're not going to Alaska. So I did my search. I went to Utah. Utah said, come, but be smart. And that's what I wanted to do. It's been on my bucket list to see Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon for a long time. So we flew to Vegas, got our rental car, drove over to Zion National Park. And for any of you that have not done either or both of those, highly recommend it. Put them on your bucket list. But here's the point. We got to Zion in June. The temperature on the day we went was 107 degrees. We went there, we did our hike, did what we wanted to do, drove over to Bryce the following day. Basically the same locale, same general area, just across the mountain range. And at Bryce, it was 50 degrees. Zion, you come in at the bottom of the canyon. Bryce, you enter at the top of the canyon. The hikes are exceedingly different. The landscapes, both incredible, but they have different challenges that you will face. In Zion, we did the Zion Narrows hike. You basically, guys, you walk up a river and then you walk back down the river. I can't recommend that hike enough. But the important point, tying it back to our presentation today, guys, is ahead of time, I knew what I was getting into, right? I knew it was a river hike. My wife and I, we got the neoprene boots, we got the walking stick, we got the wetsuit. It made it so that the hike was very enjoyable. Guys, while in that river doing the hike, lots of people passing us. One older fella in particular was leaning against a rock. I made conversation with him and asked him about the hike. And I said, hey, is this the first time you've done this? He said, actually, this is the 45th time I'm doing this hike. Well, guess what I did? I spent a few minutes with this gentleman. He was the right kind of help. He was who I needed to talk to get the information I needed to really enjoy the hike, to get the most out of it. Now, let's jump in and talk about some particular details. So point number one, guys, ensuring compliance surrounding physical records management. Let's talk about and make sure we understand the landscape and the challenges that will be presented. Now, on the first slide, the first subpoint under the landscape is regulatory compliance. Guys, hopefully what you're seeing on the right-hand side is familiar to you. Now, it is some of it industry specific, but if this is new to you, that probably means it's your first records management webinar, so welcome. But really, guys, whether you're in public, private sectors, within private, any of the verticals whatsoever, all of us are facing some pressures, some expectations from regulatory concerns at the very top and very quickly, guys. And actually, each one of these 5 that are listed, there's more that could have been. These are just the ones that we see very often. At the very top, for any of our pharmaceutical clients on the webinar today, you guys are really familiar with this, right? The 21 CFR, been around for quite some time now. If we've got any on the European side joining us, it's a corollary, the Annex 11. Both of these, it really amazes me, guys. I went back and I took a look. I hadn't read the 21 CFR Part 11 in quite some time, but decided to refresh my memory on it. And it just makes me shake my head, guys. If you exclude, right, you exclude the preamble to this document, the terms and the definitions, it's really a 2-page document. And I just thought to myself, wow, those 2 pages written a quarter of a century ago almost, how much work, how much effort, how much cost has been expended to demonstrate compliance with this regulation. The next 2 going down the list here, guys, relatively new kids on the block, right? The GDPR, the CCPA, the ramifications of these continue to grow, grossly overgeneralizing them, right? They really say, if you hold or process data, you better do it the right way. And of course, the right way is defined in lots of detail, but important regulations to be aware of nonetheless. For those in the healthcare industry, of course, the HIPAA, for a quarter century now, actually a Bill Clinton era regulation that came into play. Lots of concern concerning this. And then, of course, number 5 here, SOC 2, guys, for any of you that will anticipate or are putting your data at some level on the cloud in particular, SOC 2, lots of ramifications for you there. As a quick aside, guys, and again, generalizing just a little bit, the 4 regulations at the top, really most of the burden for demonstrating compliance with these lies with you as the customers. There's some overlap, of course, whereas the one at the bottom, generally speaking, the burden for demonstrating proof of this will lie with the vendor of your choice. So headwind number 1 that you will face, regulatory compliance as you seek to manage your physical records. Number 2, or headwind number 2, legal compliance, guys. I thought about developing slides here that went into all the detail of this, but really let's just cut right to the quick. We live in a litigious society. I don't think that's a news flash to anybody, right? Whether you're talking personal lawsuits, corporate lawsuits, some combination therein, it's just the world in which we live. And you as physical records management, those who hold responsibility for that, you need to be aware of this, of course, and plan for what this will mean to you and your operations. Guys, to have a little bit of quick fun with you, and we'll hope you'll participate here, we do want to take this and just ask you a quick question, poll number 1, so appreciate the input you give here. Specifically, what do you think is the most litigious country in the world? And guys, take your time to fill out that answer there. And while you're filling it out, just in case you're wondering, this really means all areas of litigation, be it criminal, misdemeanor, family, probate, any of the above, just in general. What do you think to be the most litigious country in the world? And while we're waiting for those votes to come in and to keep you entertained, guys, we'll give you at least one lawyer joke here. So guys, what's the difference between a dead skunk in the road and a dead lawyer in the road? Answer: there are skid marks in front of the skunk. I'll let you just digest that one, and after the webinar, you'll say, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. All right, finishing off with the tabulations here. Should get our results here momentarily. And there you have it. So as expected, guys, yep, USA, 3/4 of you said USA. Sweden, interesting, people choosing Sweden there. Germany, wow. Austria, 0. Nobody voted for Austria, interesting. And then Israel down there towards the bottom. So let's actually take a look here. Right to the poll. Like you, I thought the U.S. would be #1, but you'll notice in the results here, at least according to this one source on the internet, which if it's on the internet, it's got to be true, right? U.S. #5. If you were to take the time actually to move through the list here and just digest it all, really boils down to pretty much the U.S. and the EU. So probably no surprises there, but U.S. coming in at #5. For those of you that voted for Germany, well done. It is indeed, at least according to this source, #1. So the challenges we face, right? We've got regulatory compliance, we've got legal compliance, and we've also got organizational compliance, right? This will vary from user to user, from client to client, specific to your organization. Guys, I'm a recent transplant from the acquisition of Gimmal of Infolinks. And here's what I've known, having worked at Infolinks for 22 years and now with Gimmal, all of those years focused on physical records management. Clearly, I haven't been focused on PowerPoint, but on physical records management. Here's what I've seen, a recurring theme, right, guys, that the records management team, #1, does way too much of the work. Secondly, they are underappreciated. From the C-level and thereabouts, here's the basic, and I've kind of tried to sum it up in this slide here. Here's the basic communication. Your job, Mr. or Mrs. Records Manager, is to manage records. How hard can it be? Well, what they conveniently forget, right, is in the end, every organization, guys, organizations are made up of people. And what do people do? They tend to lose stuff. So you're going to face all kinds of challenges within the organization specific. So as a whole, guys, the landscape you're facing, the pressures you're facing from a compliance perspective include those regulatory concerns, the legal concerns, and then the specific organizational concerns for your particular company. Can we move on, Shayna? Does that work? Yes, excellent. All right, let's address now, guys, how do you tackle these challenges that lie in front of you? We're going to spend a few minutes on this next slide here. We'll go through it a little bit quickly based upon things, but before we do, we're going to try to do a poll #2 with you. And just unashamed here, guys, we're really sort of the price of admission, if you will. We really want to glean some industry insight. Would appreciate your taking just a minute to answer question or poll #2, relevant to physical records management. What most keeps you up at night? Choose one or more of the following answers. Actually, be surprised, guys, as you're filling this out, if there's a significant number of others. Again, having been doing this for quite some time, I really did include in the multiple choice here most of the answers that I've seen over the years. But of course, we do want to always keep abreast of the industry, want to know what you guys are thinking, where the pain points are. So please give us your best response. We would be grateful for that. And getting our results here. All right, let's take a look. Excellent. So, wow, very evenly spread. #1, dispositioning, destroying records. Actually, that's not unexpected, guys. I'm surprised, actually, it's not a little bit higher than that. And then the others, you, of course, can see these. I like the first one, having no idea. Absolutely. And wow, quite an even spread. other than the storing records. And then, of course, there are some others. For those of you guys that answered other, I really would appreciate if in the chat or the Q&A, if you could just supply us what you're thinking there, that would be very helpful to us. Excellent. All right, so if we can dismiss the poll, let's move on and try to make the best use of our the remainder of our time. So guys, if you're taking notes at any point in this demonstration, this webinar, now is the time to do it. I could have listed a lot more here, but really important is there's some method to the madness here in terms of how I listed these. What is it that you, who are concerned and responsible for managing physical records, what is it you need to look for? What is the equipment? What are the tools you need to address these compliance concerns? Number one, availability. Guys, what do I mean by that? Availability really means this: get the records management tool into the hands of the people. You heard me mention a couple moments ago that historically it's been the records management team and them alone. Guys, it's the 21st century. There are SaaS, cloud, thin client, browser, all synonyms for the same thing. The technology now allows you to quickly decentralize, roll the software out to the end users. If they have a browser and a login you've provided, it can be available to them. They can be a part of the records management solution. Secondly, what's the good of rolling it out if you can't configure that the security for that solution in such a way that it does what it's supposed to do? So understand that just because it's browser-based is not enough. It's got to have a robust, configurable security model. Number three, what good is it if you rolled it out, you've got the security configured properly, but it just doesn't make sense, guys? An intuitive interface, super important, because we want to encourage you to roll it out to the masses. They've got to be able to quickly understand how to use the tool. 4 and 5 guys go without saying, and it's reflected by our last poll responses there. 20 years ago, 22 years ago, when I started this, file plans, records, retentions were pretty much an afterthought. But how the landscape has changed over the years. It just goes without saying, guys, whatever vendor, whatever tool you look for, ask detailed questions about this. How do you do this with the tool? How do you begin the classification or the life cycle of a record? And then at the other end of the spectrum, when it's time to disposition, which usually means destroy, it can mean other things, how does that work in the software? Especially with physical records, right? Their electronic record counterparts is pretty simple. You click a couple buttons and you've dispositioned those electronic records. Not so with their physical counterparts. A very sometimes time-consuming, labor-intensive, convoluted process to make sure you destroy the right records as part of that process. Guys, 6 through 10 are really going to be specific to your particular scenario or application or the line of business that you're in. For those of you that are storing records off-site, either because you're a larger organization or you're in a high-rent district, make sure that your tool for physical records management has this capability. It really ought to be able to integrate with those off-site vendors. The end result there, right, is from a single interface now, manage all of your records, regardless of where they reside. For those of you with your own storage facilities that are managed by the company, your own warehouses, space management, really important feature, huge time savings made available to you here. Number 8, barcode, RFID ready. The barcode, guys, it's hardly worth mentioning. If any tool you look at cannot quickly demonstrate for you barcode compatibility, look elsewhere. I mentioned RFID because it's misunderstood quite a bit. There really are specific situations and scenarios where RFID provides a really nice value proposition. Would be glad to talk with any of you offline about this after the fact. Inventory reconciliation, guys, for any of you that are working with physical records that are highly trafficked, they're mobile, they're moving around a lot. Inventory reconciliation, an important feature to look for. And then, of course, all of these guys wrapped up together in a permanent audit trail. Really, it's the legal record as to what has happened to these records. All right, so the landscape, we talked about the challenges, very quick overview of some of the features you should really focus on as you evaluate vendors and solution to meet those challenges. And then finally, guys, as I mentioned up front, guys, make sure you seek the right kind of help. This right kind of help can be broken down into 3 categories. Number 1, look for those people who are knowledgeable. Right? So I'm going to toot Gimmal's horn here a little bit, guys. As I just mentioned, I'm a recent transplant into the Gimmal world. I'm really impressed because there's lots of software companies, guys. You guys know that they're all out there that know how to do software. There are not as many, but there's quite a few records management companies. And I'm speaking specifically within the context of physical records management now. There's some of those as well, although their number is dwindling. But guys, it really is now the rare breed that you can combine excellence in both of those. And that really is what Gimmal is, guys. They are a contemporary company. They know how to develop software. They follow all the contemporary agile processes, the SDLCs and the DevOps. And from the records management, I've just been impressed, guys, with the depth of experience and knowledge within the organization. And I'm talking every level, whether it's executive or sales or marketing or engineering or R&D, there is a depth of knowledge, hundreds of years of combined experience. Reflected in that last bullet point there, guys, with the combination of software and records management, really the product and staff history of the solution being offered for physical records management now from Gimmal dates back more than 30 years. All right, so the right kind of help needs to be knowledgeable. Secondly, the right kind of help, when you go to seek for that, it needs to be capable. What's the point if you've got all this knowledge and you can't translate that into practical action items, right? So ask your vendors these questions. The solution they want to provide you, is it contemporary? Is it just some reskinned or repackaged older application that they're just reusing? Is it being actively developed? Is this really an important part of their portfolio, the solution that they're offering to you, something that won't be sunsetted or retired in the near future? Is it configurable? Guys, important point to note here. Ideally, you're looking for an application that is an off-the-shelf product, meaning it doesn't need to be customized. Along with that, though, it doesn't mean necessarily that it has to be one size fits all. Ideally, find the solution that can be configured specific to your exact requirements. And then I think it goes without saying, just get the list of features. Make sure it has all the features that you need. And then finally, guys, knowledgeable help, capable help, and finally, look for that help that is experienced. Harkening back to the beginning of the demo, guys, the man standing in the middle of the river who pointed us in the right direction, he knew what he was talking about. It was not his first hike. Guys, Gimmal, again, it's not their first rodeo. Clients in the public and private sectors, within private, all verticals, very large enterprise solutions down to departmental solutions, scalable to any need there, and with a worldwide footprint. So guys, again, I appreciate your listening today. I know I think there's some other significant events going on in the world today. So I appreciate your taking a few minutes to spend with us. Apologies again for our technical difficulties, but we do, for as many of you that would like to stay, we do want to take some time to answer any questions that were submitted. And for that, I'll hand things back to Shana.
Thanks, Tim. There was a question that came up in the chat around the software. So I can go ahead and answer this one. Today, we were doing not a software demonstration, as we didn't want to get too deep dive, but instead give you some helpful tools and best practices for looking around for physical records management software and how to stay compliant. If you would like a demonstration, be more than happy to do that, but we will be doing a follow-up webinar with more of a deep dive product demonstration. Okay, so there's another question here. Will we get a recording of this? Yes, we will be sending it out in the form of a thank you email. And then Tim, here is a question for you. Can the software ingest data from other sources?
Yes, absolutely. I'll give you all the details if you follow up with me offline, but the quick answer is absolutely yes.
Okay, and is there a need to reprint legacy barcodes?
Oh, excellent question. No, almost always, guys, whatever barcodes you've printed and applied, you can continue to use those. No need to go through all that labor again.
And I'll ask just one more question. We're a couple minutes over, and I want to be respectful of time. So let me see. If we don't get to your question now, we'll go ahead and email you with a response. Oh, it looks like one came up in the chat. I'm looking for an electronic records management software for our municipality. Can residents of a municipality access information that is stored on this software, for example, bylaws and et cetera?
Yeah, big question there that requires a long, detailed answer, but the quick answer is yes. But again, there's some important caveats that you would need to know. So would appreciate it again if you would follow up with us after the fact, and we'll walk you through all those possibilities.
And both of our email addresses are right there on the screen. If you do think of other questions, again, we're going to go ahead and end right around now just to make sure that we aren't going over too much. If we didn't get to your questions, we'll email you. If you can think of more, email us. So with that being said, if you'd like a personalized demonstration of the software where you can ask Tim as many questions as you want and get them answered, you can visit us at www.gimmal.com or just email us at info@gimmal.com. For those of you, again, who are looking for a recording of today's webinar, we will be sending out in the form of a thank you email between 24 to 48 hours. Additionally, we hope to see you at next week's webinar, What to Consider When Retiring a Legacy System. We thank you all for your time and do apologize for the technical difficulties, but hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.